Alright. Oh, this is by sheer coincidence. Both the two trades I'm about to review are the basically last trades to talk about for these two writers who runs this book, just by sheer coincidence. Let's talk about them. First up we have is Nightcrawler Volume 1, Homecoming. You're probably thinking, Nick, did you read this trade series out of order? Yes, I did, because that's how the library got it to me. This collects the first 6 issues of Nightcrawler Volume 4. Written by Claremont. Mostly part of this is basically Nightcrawler basically just had to came back from the dead after the first arc of Amazing X-Men done by Jason Aaron, as sort of his final thing he had to do for X-Men before moving on to Thor. Yeah, that's the last thing he did before he moved on to Thor. I think it was actually he was working the book at the same time. I think that he decided he already left Wolverine X-Men at that point in time, and he had this one last story arc. This arc from Amazing X-Men started this brand new series, which was really good, by the way. And the series didn't last much longer afterwards. It seems like right after the opening 5 issues, the series managed to last for about 9 more issues, and then the series just ended because Secret Wars. And Marvel never brought it back. Nope, never did. As far as I can tell, I do not know the reason for it. They just never did. And you might be thinking, did Jason Aaron go on to some other book aside from Thor that he was working on? At that point in time, he just wrapped up his run for Wolverine the X-Men. Actually, scratch that. It was just 2013 this has happened. This is actually about, I'm trying to think here. Actually, no, I think he just did this one story arc. He was still kind of working on Amazing X. This book, he had just left Amazing. He just finished up his run for Wolverine the X-Men. This actually was his last thing he had to do. I think he just completely focused on Thor at this point in time. Yes, I believe so. Trying to think here. What book he was working at that point in time? Let's see. He was working on Avengers at this point. That only comes about 5 years later, believe it or not. He did work on Iron Man. Let me think about this. What book was he working on at that point in time? Because he just finished Wolverine the X-Men. I kind of forgot. What book did he work on? Like, it seems as though, like, right after he wrapped up this book. No, it wasn't Ghost Rider. What was it he worked on afterwards? I think it was just Thor. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think it was just... Actually, no. I think he... Actually, that came a year later when he worked on that book. I don't think he was working on anything. I think after he finished up his run for Wolverine the X-Men, I think he pretty much, in a way... Actually, I think it was not long after that. It was actually 2014 it happened, yes. So, I think that he wrapped this book at the same time. So, I think... Let's see. I think he would just work on Thor. At this point in time. I think it was Thor. Actually, no. He had just... I think it was not... Actually, scratch that. I think their book replaced... Amazing X-Men was Star Wars, which he did that for a few years before he handed out to Kieran Gillian, which he basically not had a very mixed run, in my opinion. So basically, Nightcrawler is back to life after the events of the first arc. By the way, the Baps are here in this book. Of course they are. Then we see a sort of return of his adoptive Samantha, who he's also in love with. You're thinking, adopted sister, and of course they grew up together, and they're in love with each other. Thinking, doesn't sound very familiar. Yes, apparently Chris Claremont this side ripped this off from Johnny Blaze, with him and his foster sister, Roxanne Sampson, who he actually married and had 2 kids with. The kids are rumored to be deceased, and Roxanne, she's definitely confirmed to be dead. But Nightcrawler is back, and of course, this is also during the period of time when this book came out, that Wolverine has lost his healing factor. Yes, this is something that happened not in Wolverine the X-Men. Jason had nothing to do with it at all. This happened in his solo book. Yes, apparently after AVX, with the conclusion of the first arc by Paul Cornell, Wolverine loses his healing factor. And also this book, he had started wearing, wearing this outfit here. Now, this outfit here, he actually would wear in the relaunch of the book. It's armor he has because he still has the anime in his body, but every time he basically opens the claws, his hands get infected. And they start bleeding like crazy. So, in order to counteract the armor, that effect, he basically has armor in order to cover the fact he has a healing factor. Then of course, Nightcrawler goes meet up with Mercury again, who, and I think it was Amazing X-Men, some other book, they outed her as a lesbian, where actually she was straight. I think they outed her as bisexual, and she started dating Roxy. And actually, this happened in the pages of X-Men Volume 4 by Brian Wood. Yeah, it was the relaunch. And as far as I can tell, this relationship went absolutely nowhere because it was barely brought up afterwards. And as of currently, there is no mention of this relationship. It's like it was there, and they became a couple, and nothing. So, yeah, Mercury is basically becoming a student. That's why she was trained with the X-Men. Yeah, it's kind of weird. And then, of course, then after Rachel Gray, which they have fling, and of course, meet with Amanda and fight up these strange robots. Of course, Amanda Softed is a sorceress. Yep, always good to see her, and it's a great team story between the two of them. And they fight this creature, and then of course she gets sealed off, and that's the opening story arc of the series. Yeah, fighting this magical stuff, and then of course you have a Sandal issue. We have playing baseball, and deal with more stuff, and well, this other guy in pirate stuff. But this opening story I thought was really good. It's sad to say that the story that came afterwards, not including the Death of Wolverine issue, that I thought was really good. I kind of felt as though that the remaining issues kind of felt okay compared to this opening story. Really good. And that's pretty much it for that run for Nightcrawler. Yep. You're probably thinking, okay, so like in the case of 2019, had reviewed pretty much everything for the X books came out the very year that this came out. I don't think I reviewed everything. Not necessarily, no. It was kind of surprising that Nightcrawler got a solo book. And to my knowledge, Marvel, the next time Marvel did anything with Nightcrawler as sort of a self-titled book was Age of X-Men. Believe it or not, 4 years later, actually more like 5 years later with the Age of X-Men stuff. And then he had the Way of X book, which I thought was his book. And Nightcrawler was getting really weird in the last few years. Yeah, Gone is basically this really, really good written stuff. I heard some say he's basically just cast aside him being Catholic in order to do a cult. Yeah, I'm basically reading two perspectives when it comes to that. But in my case, my final thoughts on this very brief run for Nightcrawler. It's a good run. Yes, I do recommend it. It's also, fun fact, the same length as the previous volume for this series, which was also 12 issues. I don't know. I think maybe Marvel, some people, the sales may have slipped after the opening story arc. I think people may have bought the Death of Wolverine issue, but I think after that issue came, I think the sales may have started slipping. That's probably the reason why the book got canceled. It's just my personal guess anyways. But it's an amazing book, and I do recommend it. Check it out. Next up we have is, sadly, the final trade for this Rares run for Iron Man. Yeah, Christopher Cantwell. This is his last trade to collect his very brief run for Iron Man. At least got reason for this. At least it's longer than Dan Slott's run, if you don't count the Iron Man 2020 miniseries. Yeah, for issues-wise, he put out more issues than that run did, and you're probably thinking, did he put out more issues than Bendis' run? Sadly, no. Bendis has a slightly longer run. Now, these issues are basically from Iron Man I think this is like volume 6, I think it is. Issues 20 and 25. So, in the opening issue, at the end of the previous story arc, Iron Man went to rehab and came out. Of course, he's recovering slowly. And it's do it by Hellcat, who is his girlfriend in this book, who at the end of the book he just posts during the course she thinks about it. Excuse me. That the Space Friends, the awesome group that where Iron Man and Son was taking on Karvik because Karvik died in issue 19, they were disbanded and became a fantasy football league. Well, they basically are doing their own thing now. Rhodey still appears in the book. Hellcat only appears in the opening issue, appears in the last issue, doesn't do very much. So, teams with Rhodey and runs into Cobalt Man. I'm thinking, wait, is this the original Cobalt Man from the 60s? No, it's actually Riri. Yes, Riri has bought the Mandarin rings. And I love the writing here for how Iron Man and Riri are written. Where basically, Riri points out that as why don't you trust her? Because they trust much of anybody. Yes, because she's young. Riri is smart, but she's not stupid. And I appreciate the fact that the Cantwell basically wrote her that way. Yes, and then of course, here's the strange thing. She shows up at the end of one issue as Cobalt Man, and then the very next issue goes back to her Ironheart armor. I'm like, what was the point of your Cobalt Man? Yeah, I don't know why. It's weird. Then pretty much basically goes, it also deals with the Mandarin rings. Mandarin is still, he actually died. He actually was brought back at the Matthew Rosberg's run for Punisher, and Punisher killed him off. Yeah, and then of course, like right after the Cobalt Man stuff, then you have, after the Cobalt Man issues, then you have Iron Man just thinking exactly what he wants to do. And that was basically those switch with Cobalt Man. Those were the 23, 24. The whole thing with some stuff afterwards is that, the opening issue is basically just a standalone issue, like check out Rehab and me with Gorilla Man. Stuff was Dark Unlimited. Basically trying to get back to what he was doing before. It's a quick standalone issue. There was DB Cooper stuff. Really fun stuff. And then leads into stuff with Cobalt Man. Yep. Which takes up next 3 issues. And the final issue, issue 25. Love this Alex Ross cover. Which, by the way, the cover for you see on the cover of the trade, I believe that's issue number 20. Yep. As for the back issue cover, I believe that's 21. No, it's not 21. It's is it 22? Nope. It is. It's not 25. I'm trying to find out exactly because I know that the first issue was 20, but it's not 23. I think it might be 24. No, I think it might be something else. So, in the final issue, Iron Man is thinking exactly what he wants to do now because, basically, we have a warehouse where I think you have Bethany Cabe. Yes, Bethany Cabe was last seen in the previous run for the book by Dan Slott. And we have appearance here, cameo by a Sentinel head. Because, then you have Riri studying the rings. And then you have Hellcat talking to Sleepwalker. Yes, Sleepwalker. Though he's not the only guest that we have in here. There's Iron Man stuff here. You have him basically saving a guy who nearly dies, goes to the hospital. And they have appearance here by the Avengers Mansion. I'm like, okay, interesting. I think this is actually quite interesting though because here was the strange thing. This building was destroyed at the end of Mark Waid's run for Avengers. And by the way, that was back in 2017. This is 2022. They must have rebuilt this since then. So they have a party there. And then we have some backup stories. And apparently 25 was also 650 issue series, so let's have a double-sized issue. We have Iron Man testing out his new armor, and it's called Yonahai. Basically, it's him going to the home of the Frost Giants, which I'm like, that's cool. And running to Thor during a period of time when he was lost his arm. Back sort of like a reimagining of an old. This is basically not exactly like a reprint per se. It's more like a remake, retelling of issue 126 up to, let's say, Tales of Suspense, more like Iron Man 126. Because, excuse me, here's the thing. There was no Tales of Suspense 126. This is Iron Man 126, so he's here basically about the Reactive Man. I think it was great they threw this in here. And then we have a sort of a sneak preview of the we have a sneak preview of what could happen in the very next volume. Iron Man being targeted, him being put on trial of law, something to do with Howard Stark, Stark Unlimited, where Stark is called fraud murderer. You have it looks like someone with a gun, and then it continues in Invincible Iron Man. This book is utterly fantastic. Great book. I give this book a 10 out of 10. Final thoughts on Christopher Cantwell's run Iron Man. In my opinion, probably, as someone who's read a lot of Iron Man, my friend Edgar probably agreed with this too. Probably the best Iron Man run in years. I have not read such a good Iron Man run since Matt Fraction wrote the book. That was the last time we had a good Iron Man run. Because Kieran Gillen had a really good run for the start, and then he had that retcon where, he was adopted. It came weird afterwards. Bendis had an interesting run per se, but wasn't, let's say, as good as other runs were. Slott's was mixed at best, but at least we had Iron Man fighting one of his own foes, the Controller. Here, it's him versus Garbeck for 19 issues, while basically we'll have a team with the Space Friends. This felt like a book that was back to basics for Iron Man, and trying to bring Iron Man back to the good stuff that people love him for. It was shocking to hear this book decide to run this at an end after only 25 issues last year. I was kind of surprised to see that, especially since I saw that, the book is getting restarted as Invincible Iron Man, volume, I think it's like 4, I think it is, but damn. Excuse me. With Gary Duggan as the writer, which is interesting to say the least, because who would have thought Gary Duggan wrote Iron Man? Because it seems like he writes Deadpool, wrote X-Men, Marauders, Savage Avengers, now Iron Man. He's everywhere. Yep. Interesting though, he's written Iron Man. You might be thinking he hasn't written Iron Man 4 in any books he previously wrote. No. Not that I think. Actually, I think he may have wrote him in Deadpool. But that's the only experience I can think of for Iron Man would probably appear in Deadpool. Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it, particular view. Next up is going to be Case Closed, but I might not have time to do that tonight. Sadly. I have to stay for tomorrow. Yep. Switch to the next video. Bye.